Well, welcome back to the Unstoppable Freedom Podcast. I'm Jimmy Page. Hey, today we join Jen Sey again with part 2 of this 2-part series on protecting women and girls in sports. The fight to protect girls and women in sports and in spaces is far from over. You're going to really enjoy part 2. Here we go with Jen Sey.
Because the whole thing in corporate America is you read the script, and I had refused to read the script. So.
Oh yeah, you cut your marketability in half at least. I know I had Andrew
zero.
Right. I had Andrew Krepichet's on here with Red Balloon. He's kind of offering that alternative to say,
Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew's great because, like you're looking for employment after you've stood out for your values, which is just unbelievable to me, right? That in this nation you pay such a penalty, such a price. I do believe the pendulum is swinging back, but a lot of people have relaxed because the election results went a certain way, and we think everything's going to get fixed just magically. And I believe that now is the real work. It's
not getting fixed magically. That we can talk about that, especially as it pertains to the issue of males and women's sports. But it does feel different, though.
It does.
People are saying if they voted for Trump, whereas they might not have before.
True.
I don't know. People, even the major networks, I'd stopped watching news for a long time, but I've been sort of watching. They're other than MSNBC, which I never watched and can't.
Right.
CNN is sort of trying.
They're trying.
Sort of trying.
They're trying. Time Magazine puts them on the cover, which is stunning. Yeah, it is a little odd. I guess it's politically correct to tell the truth again.
But it's not just that they put him on the cover. It's like a flattering photo. And I didn't read the article yet, but it seems pretty fair and balanced from what I've heard from people. Like they didn't try to vilify him as the person of the year.
Yeah, that's right. It is amazing how that's changing. So you couldn't get back into. There's no way you're getting paid. It is right. It feels so good. I mean, I after the election, I think many of us, millions of us, felt a renewed sense of hope, kind of that pride and swagger back in being an American again, which feels really good. I'm so sick of people running America into the ground. How about we build it up together instead? How about we help fulfill the American promise together rather than just running it into the ground, the greatest nation on earth? So that's part of what we're doing. We're trying to restore the culture, and we're trying to get back to a place where we can deliver on the American promise, where we have equal opportunity and everyone can, succeed and have free speech. So you finally get to this place where you resign from Levi's, a great 23 years with them. And then you launch, it took you a little while, but you launched XXXY Athletics, which, by the way, how I got introduced to you is because of the Nike video.
Oh, dear Nike.
Oh my gosh. I mean, first of all, I was like, okay, I love this brand and I hope they make stuff for men, which you do. Thank you.
Yeah.
And because, but tell me about that. What happened? You've been protecting women, children, sport, all of it. You've been in sports. You've been a competitive athlete. What happened to say, I'm going to get in to this business? I'm going to create my own clothing brand. What happened? What was the catalyst?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I was interviewing for a big job, a CEO job, and I went through like hours and hours, maybe 8 or 9 interviews. And the last one was with an HR representative on the board. And she opened the interview with, "Are you willing to apologize for what you've done?" This is in like the middle of 2023. And what I had done was advocate for open public schools. So at this point, everybody knows that the public schools stay closed. I mean, everybody, but maybe, the tiniest sliver of Americans.
Wow.
And she asked me if I was willing to apologize. It was sort of like, this is the litmus test. If you're willing to do that, maybe, yes, we'll hire you. She didn't say that, but that was the implication. And I said, no, why? I was right about everything.
Oh, this is so good. Good. I wish I was there for this.
I was sitting in this seat right here. I was astonished. And it was that moment that I realized, I'm never going to be allowed back in. It's not the subject. And it doesn't matter if the culture changes and people realize that everything that was done was wrong and ineffective. It doesn't matter. I had strayed from the script. I had proven myself to be someone unwilling to read from the script. And that was the reason. I don't think it dawned on me until that moment. And I was like, well, I need to figure something out because I still got to make a living and I have 4 kids and I have 2 in college and all this. So I was talking with a friend a lot of things sort of fell in place, but I was thinking I'm going to have to start my own thing, which isn't really what I had in mind at 54. But life takes you
Hey,
places, I
perfect time.
guess.
Let's go. You got a lot of gas in the tank. Let's go. Come on.
And I was talking with a friend who now works with the company about a business that sort of could combine my athletic background with my apparel and fashion experience and willingness to say true but inconvenient things. And then I met someone here who was interested, and he became a business partner, and it all just kind of fell in line. And again, I sort of started naively. I was like, well, let me write a plan and let me do this and let me see if I can build a team. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh gosh, it's go time. We're actually launching. Right. I will say the difference this time is I knew the backlash that I would face, and I was ready for it because I have trained for it.
Wow. I love the fact that your experience led you to this point. I mean, seriously, you had been through the crucible. I mean, you had literally been through the grinder when you stood up for things that mattered to you historically. So you knew you were going to get backlash, but this whole idea, were you passionate about this issue of saving women's sports? Because honestly, you're super clear about why you started XXXY Athletics. You're here to protect women's sports and spaces. I mean, it's on your front page. This isn't going anywhere. Is that what compelled you to start the brand? How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, I care deeply about protecting women's sports and spaces. For all the hell I went through as a gymnast, the benefits, the opportunities afforded to me are amazing, know, and I started gymnastics only 2 years after Title IX passed. I know that wouldn't have been possible for me to have embarked on that journey without Title IX. So yes, it's absolutely very important to me, but I would add something else. The truth is important to me.
Yes.
And there is such an egregious lie at the heart of this whole gender ideology movement. Yeah. Men and women are different.
Yes.
And men are different down to their cells from before the day they are born, in gestation. Yes. Females are different down to their cells. Men cannot become women. You aren't a woman if you say you are. It's completely destabilizing. It's ridiculous that we've sort of believed these lies. Yes. I want to treat everyone with dignity and compassion, but I will not further a lie.
Yes.
And so for me, it seems like the most egregious and fundamental lie that we're being told you must repeat to be a good person. And I won't do it. I mean, COVID was too. It's just a little more complicated than men and women are different.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID was a terrible, horrible lie.
Yes.
You need to do these things. You need to give us your freedom for safety.
Yes.
Everyone's at equal risk. You need to stay home to stay. All of that was lies.
Yes.
But so that for me is why it really matters, because if we allow ourselves to believe and further this lie that the human body is just material and all the parts are exchangeable, I just don't even want to think about the path that sends us down.
Yeah. And we're far down that path right now. And it's funny because, what was once unthinkable is now acceptable. And in some ways, they're asking us to agree with it and celebrate it. And I think anyone with a brain on this one is saying, no, like you just said, we care about the truth. We're not going to participate in a charade. We're not going to participate in a lie. It is damaging emotionally, psychologically, physically to children. I mean, what's happening in this state, as you know, being, right in the heartbeat of this state, what's happening to children with secret conversations in schools, with gender transition closets, with demonizing parents and parental rights, parents like you and I that are showing up at school board meetings. It is an extensive problem, right? And so this is now kind of boiled over into the sports world. My daughter played sport. I'm a girl dad. I'm also a boy dad, but I'm a girl dad. I love female athletics. I used to coach it. I coached basketball when my daughter was young. I coached lacrosse. I mean, I just love it. And so I have this compelling reason to engage in this too. I was in sports ministry with FCA, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, for a long, long time. And so this matters to me, right? How we leave opportunities for women. Was there a catalytic moment that said, hey, this brand is going to be an activist brand. This brand's going to make a difference?
Well, I mean, we knew from the beginning that our sort of stated positioning would be around the protection of women's sports. You know, one of the other motivators for me was I looked around at all these athletic brands that claim to stand up for women, and that's what sort of inspired the Dear Nike ad that we did. But all these brands claim to be champions of women and female athletes, and they are silent on this issue. And I don't think there is an issue that is more relevant and more important right now to women's sports existing in the future. And people can say it's not that many examples. You know what? There are examples where trans identified males occupied all 3 spots on the winner's podium.
It's unbelievable.
There are teams where trans identified males are half the players. Like, it's everywhere. And pretty soon, I'm not a huge slippery slope person, but like pretty soon there is a world in which that entire San Jose State University team is males and no women are on the team. So it's really the end of women's sports. I mean, I can't remember, I think it's J.K. Rowling who talked about it.
Yes.
If a man can be a woman and enter our spaces, there is no more protection of women's rights and sex-based rights and women's sports. So it ends when that barrier is broken.
That's right.
So I just felt it was so important and no one was willing to do it. And I was willing to do it because what do I care? I've already been canceled. You can't be canceled 3 times. So I figured, why not? Let's roll the dice. Let's try it. And I really believe, I wouldn't call it an activist brand. I mean, I get where you're coming from on that. I just believe brands can influence the culture.
Yes.
You know, I think Levi's does. I think Nike does. I think sometimes in very positive ways and sometimes in really toxic ways. And so why can't we create a brand that is really high quality, beautiful product with elevated marketing that makes it okay to stand up and say this? Because you know what? Most people agree with us, even Democrats.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah, and I love the fact that this brand, you don't want to create a separate, this parallel economy. You want to be mainstream, right down the heart. It's throw the fastball straight down the middle. And what I love about that is these iconic American brands, like you think about Bud Light, you think about Chevy, you think about all these brands that are really being damaged by this woke ideology in the C-suite, and we know why. I think part of that is to diminish our love and pride in this country. And that bothers me as much as anything else. So I'm hoping XXXY Athletics becomes a prominent American brand. That this is legit, right? Mainstream. Let's go compete with the Nikes of the world. Let's show that conservative values, if you will, or what I would just say is just common sense values actually prevail in this culture. So I'm super excited about it. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, calling this a conservative value, I understand why you do, because it is largely conservatives who have been willing to stand up and say anything, although there are women from the left. But calling it that is a tactic by the left, because if you are a lefty in San Francisco, being called a conservative or a Republican is basically a slur. Right. I mean, it's as bad as being called a racist. So that's a tactic. So that's why that's the other reason I don't accept that this is a conservative. It's not conservative.
It's an American brand. It's true.
It's also, how is standing up for women conservative?
Right. Shouldn't that be universal?
It should be universal. And certainly the left, the left thinks they're the brand that stands up for women. They're not. They're selling them short and out. So anyway, I just felt like, I think, I was trying to think about what to do next, and people were like, run for office. And I was like, that sounds terrible. I can't really think of anything more horrible. I really like running a business. I like building brands. This is what I'm good at. I think we all have an obligation to take the skills that we have to make an impact. And I think brands can make a positive impact.
Yes.
So,
big time.
If I wear this sweatshirt or my husband does to the soccer game, and a mom looks and she's like, oh, I know what that means. Am I really allowed to say that? I can say that?
Right.
Oh,
right.
It's right. It has this knock-on effect. Yes. And I've
you're giving people permission.
That's right.
For me, that's the whole point of this, right? As people were wondering, like I was asked by friends and neighbors, why are you open about your support for a political candidate, in this case, Trump? I'm like, I'm giving people permission to say the same thing. So I wore a Trump hat in downtown Fort Collins, which, by the way, is San Francisco light. We're close. And everyone was like, wow, that's a really big risk. I said, actually, watch what happens. So we went down
What
there, and of
happened?
course,
Yeah.
all these young men come up to me and say, love the hat, man. I mean, you can't imagine how many people just want to know it's okay to say what you believe.
Yeah, it's interesting because my husband put Trump signs out in front of our lawn,
Oh,
and we're lifelong, Democrat
yep.
voters. But he put them out, and we live in a pretty blue neighborhood. Although my assumption is because there were a lot of Harris,
Yeah.
cat ladies for Harris signs
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But there are a lot of houses with no signs.
Yep.
I think the no sign people,
Oh, no doubt.
But anyway, but the no sign people have to put up a sign.
Yes.
Because and the people who are on our side about no males in women's sports need to say so, because the silence is complicity, and then you let the loudest bullies win. But we have a neighbor 2 doors down who we haven't been here that long, who we never met and never talked to, but she came up to my husband and she was like, I think I'm going to put my signs out now too. Like it was exactly that. Yes. It was this older woman who was a lifelong conservative. She was like, thank you for making it okay.
Exactly. And that's what your brand does. Your brand, in my opinion, is so creative. The whole XXXY deal is, I mean, it is genius. I feel like God must have given you this idea because it's that good. It's better than the Nike swoosh, in my opinion. I mean, it's on par with that type of thing. For real, it's so intuitive. It tells you exactly what it is right away, and so like you said, people will see it and they'll get permission because they see it on your.
Or they'll go.
Oh,
I've had that too. So I definitely had mostly it's 99% positive, and a lot of times my daughter plays soccer. She's little, and my son plays very serious soccer. And usually, if we wear them, to the game, somebody will say, I agree with you.
Yep.
One time I had a very challenging interaction where I was told my t-shirt was harmful.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So are your thoughts. I mean, my gosh, I've heard it all, geez. Tell me this. So the Dear Nike video was amazing. Yeah. Did Nike respond at all? Did they, I mean, I'm imagining no, but did they come to you and say, hey, let's chat about this?
No.
Yeah. Would they ever? Yeah.
No, I mean, I know what you would do if you were a senior executive at a well-known global company. You would just pretend it wasn't happening because you'd feel like acknowledging it was beneath you. I mean, we're this tiny little, we're 8 months old.
Oh, it's okay.
The sales that we have done so far, they do in like 1 second of every day. So it would feel beneath them. You would just swat it away, pretend it didn't exist. If it continued to build the sentiment, at some point you might not acknowledge it, but start to, this is what happens with product. You pretend it doesn't exist when it's an upstart. Then you start to steal their ideas. Then you buy them. Those are the stages.
That's great. And you know it better than anybody. Like you've been there. Yeah, you get this.
Those are the stages. But it's a strategy. I mean, I'm very positive they noticed and knew about it, and that they had not a lot of conversations, but some conversations about it. And it was decided to ignore it. But we're not going to go away.
Yeah, you're not going away. And that's the beauty of this, right? I think it's going to grow and grow for sure. And I think I want to talk about some of the prominent coaches and athletes that that have come alongside in organizations, but I've got to believe that men want to jump on this. I mean, for me, I want to wear the gear. I went online today. I'm buying gear because I want to send that message, especially in this town where we've kind of lost our minds and stuff. So, I got to believe men are going to be a big part of this movement. Do you feel that same way?
Well, we hope so. I mean, women are the vast majority of our buyers. Our women's line is a lot bigger, but we think men want to get involved. We think men need to get involved because men care about truth too.
Yes.
Men have wives and sisters and daughters and mothers.
Yes.
And so we think men should not sit this one out.
Definitely.
Which is why, because we debated not having men's clothing, but that's why we do have it. And I think there are a lot of dads in particular that are very engaged.
Yeah, I think so too. Talk about a little bit about those that have jumped on board. I know you've got Riley Gaines, you've got a number of high level athletes who are obviously at the forefront of this Save Women's Sports movement. Was it easy to recruit people to be part of it?
Well, we had Riley from the start, and she's been awesome. And I knew her before we started, so she was all in from the minute we started.
Yep.
As was Paula Scanlon, who was a swimmer at UPenn. Will Thomas was on the same team. She faced all sorts of challenges internally. After we launched, there were athletes that would approach us. So, for instance, we work with a Taekwondo athlete named JC Bassett. She's not well known. She isn't famous. She's 16 years old and one of the very best in the world, though.
Wow.
And she's willing to stand it. She reached out to us, and we were like, yep, we want currently competing athletes.
Yes.
Lauren Miller is a golfer. She's a pro golfer, not quite LPGA level. I think we reached out to her because she'd been outspoken that the LPGA needed to change its policies, which they just did.
Good. Yeah. Week. Amazing. Which is amazing. And it is showing that there is fighting back, actually, you can win.
Works.
Yeah, it works.
You can win.
You can
win.
It's
going to be hard, but you can do it. And if we do it together, I believe, to come back to what you were saying in the beginning, that this isn't over because Trump is president. Politics and policy is all downstream from culture. And unless we stand up and change the culture, and unless the 80% of the people stand up without fear of reprisal and say, yeah, my daughter deserves to play on an all-female team. She deserves privacy in the locker room without males entering, without fear of backlash, without fear of getting kicked out of their school. Until that happens, then this is not over. And the fact is the office of the president doesn't make the rules for the U.S. Olympic Committee.
Yeah, that's right.
Or let alone the International Olympic Committee. Private clubs are the feeders for the Olympic movement, not schools, not elementary schools and middle schools and high schools. I never competed in a school environment in my life as a gymnast. It was all private clubs.
Right.
So what's going to change that? And then add insult to injury, every governing body for every sport, for every age, it's different. So it's very fractured. There's not one like magic wand that can get waved. So we, the people, are the ones that are going to make the difference.
That's right.
When the U.S. Olympic Committee knows that 80% of us, more probably, will not stand for this, they'll change the rule.
There you go. Wow. I got to feel like the good news is this issue, if you look at polls, is overwhelmingly for protecting girls and women in sports and spaces, right? There's not a man alive that I know that would advocate for men being in women's locker rooms or boys being in girls' space. I mean, it's just inconceivable, right? I know those people exist. I've never.
You don't know the lefty men in San Francisco.
I just can't even get my hands around this, but so let's win it at the local level, right? Let's win it at the cultural level. If you were to coach some of our listeners, by the way, we've got a ton of parents on here with boys and girls.
Yeah.
We've got a ton of people that care about this. We've got business owners who want to know what they can do. What do we do? What are some things that we can do right now to enter into this cultural fight, if you will, and protect women and girls?
Well, it's, one, pay attention to what's happening in your community. Show up when there is a male that is competing in the women's or girls division. Prepare your child to walk away if they are put in that situation. Because I don't think that if you're not prepared, I mean, even Riley says this, right? Wow. Riley Gaines swam against Leah Thomas or Will Thomas. When Riley was told, you're going to need to stand down while we let him have the trophy, in the moment, she was understandably overwhelmed. So I tell people, prepare your child. I also tell people, if you're not willing, like a friend of mine was speaking at a school board meeting last night on this very issue that the school board insists is settled. She said, it's not settled. It's an open here. I can talk. And, so she did. If you're not that person and you're not willing to do that, that's a lot. Support people that are. Support the people that are willing to really put themselves out there, because it means a lot to know that you're not alone in all of this. A simple thing is, I mean, this sounds self-serving, wear the t-shirt to the soccer game. I mean, the woman who, approached me and was telling me that my t-shirt was harmful was asking me to not wear it to practices, that kind of thing. And so not only did I decline her offer, but I wear it every time, and so does my husband, and we gave them to all the parents that also agree with us. So now there's like half of us that show up in the t-shirts.
So good. So good.
Because they cannot bully us into being silent. That's the thing. And so Now, if it's half the parents wearing the t-shirt,
yes.
what is she going to do? Tell us all we can't wear it? Like
right.
she know, but they believe they are the majority, the righteous majority,
yes.
because too many people are scared and silent. So don't be. And maybe that's just wear a hat or a t-shirt. Maybe that definitely prepare your child, and then really support the people that are willing to kind of battle this on the front line.
It's so good. I mean, those are real practical things. I can envision a day when the majority of the parents in the stands watching these games have these shirts on. And I think that is it is a bold thing for some people to do. It's way outside of some people's comfort zones to take that kind of risk. I mean, for you, it's like no big deal. You've been doing this for 25 years. I mean, let's go. But it honestly is so empowering, Jen. Like when you start to stand for the truth, even if you stand alone, it is so empowering. It strengthens your resolve, and it gives you courage you didn't know you have. And it emboldens everyone around you to do the same thing. We've got to start making it okay again to stand for the truth.
Yeah.
Well, I love what you're doing. Listen, I love what, right. And in that moment,
I got nothing to add.
And there
I
you
got
go.
nothing to
Well, I am so grateful for you. I'm going to get a whole bunch of gear for Christmas. I'm going to outfit a bunch of my friends that have kids in sports that care about this issue. And we're going to get the word out. So Jen, thanks so much. Appreciate you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet.